again, bloody hell, there's a lot of news today that's winding me up. It's the 4th of November still. And again, another BBC News story. Do the poor have a right to live in expensive areas? I really, really, really do not know where to begin with this. I can't believe that the BBC are passing this as a news story. It's absolutely diabolical. I mean, why? First of all, why are these places expensive? Because it's not the poor people's fault that house prices have gone up. It's fucking estate agents. It's a pathetic nature in which this economy works. I mean, where do you want them all to go? Do you want them ghettoised all up in Manchester or Nottingham or in Yorkshire? You know, it is bloody social cleansing. You know, they're sat there going, the row over housing benefit has led to warnings of social cleansing. But can those on low incomes really have an entitlement to stay in expensive localities? Oh my God, you know, they're talking like there's a legitimacy to all this crap. I mean, they've got the picture right there, you know, of this really run-down set of block flat housing behind the skyline of London. I mean, this is hardly what you call luxurious housing. I mean, why the fuck should anyone who's earning 3 times as much be paying for a shithole like that? I mean, who else, not to be nasty, but who else should be living in shit housing like that except the poor? At the end of the day, the reason why all this housing benefit is needed is because of the way the private market and the government, through, you know, taxation and other things, has fucked up the cost of living. Yeah, back in the day, I can always remember my grandparents saying to me that when they put the rent up by a tanner, everyone went mad. You know, but then for some reason they put the child benefit up. Why put something up and then give people more? I mean, it's one of these instances where all of a sudden everything that conservatives say seems to make sense to me. But, you know, this isn't just the fault, is it? This isn't just the fault of Labour. This isn't the fault of just, you know, progressive governments. This is the fault of everybody, and it's largely the fault of the Conservatives by encouraging the private sector in housing. My own home that I grew up with was purchased in 1980 for £2,000. It is now worth 115. That is not justifiable. And, you know, and with that cost in, you know, thingy, so has rent gone up. I mean, I live in a relatively impoverished area, and it costs £440 a month bare minimum to rent a house around here, and that's if you get it on council. If you're getting it private, it is at least £80 more a month. There's a house round the corner that's been turned into a student flat, and they want £70 a month for one room. £70 a week, sorry, for one room. It's absolutely diabolical. You know, a lot of these houses, why do they need to be charged? I mean, all the houses that were built on the council scheme have already paid for themselves in rent that has been paid over the last 40 years. You know, there's no need to be giving people £2,000 a week when you can just give them the friggin' home. You know, how much money do you want to make off a property that in raw materials is only worth about £700? You know, you are making it cost this much. It's phantom figures by someone in an office going, alright, we'll put that up by this, we'll put this up by that. It's phantom money, and we're talking like it's a problem. The solution is just to say, right, it's not going to cost. It's not going to cost. I know that'll put a dip in the market. I know that'll cause problems. But, you know, it's a bit like having an operation that you don't think that you need at the moment. You know, yes, it might put you out for 6 weeks, but, you know, in the long run, it's that kind of situation. You know, with house prices going up, this problem is only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, because cheaper housing is not being built in area, you know, and cheaper housing isn't in areas where there's employment. It's a mad situation caused by greedy, avaricious bastards who are making us all suffer because they want a bonus. So no, absolutely not. Housing benefits should bloody stay, and people shouldn't be uprooted and moved simply because they're living in certain areas. And of course the government's playing a very, very, very risky ground on all of this, because of course the BBC have quite interestingly changed the issue to social cleansing, whereas when this debate was begun by Boris Johnson, it was ethnic cleansing. The BBC are playing a very sly game here, because they know full well that with cuts in housing benefit, as Boris Johnson does, the demographic of London will change radically, because essentially what it means is that a shitload of immigrants are going to be kicked out if this housing benefit takes place. Because, it's just one of those situations. We might want to play the politically correct game, but there are an inordinate amount of non-white people claiming housing benefit. And it's largely to do with the fact that everyone wants to be in London. I really do not know how to deal with this, but it's definitely true to say that if all these people are booted out of London and are moved up north, there will be uproar, because you could pretend that it don't exist, but people are pretty racist up north. And people who are struggling to get by, people who are on queues for 6 years plus for a council house around areas like this. I mean, I'm in the Midlands, not the north, but then to see shitloads of immigrants move up here and jump the queue would be absolutely outrageous, and people would go nuts. And it's all excuse. Oh, well, they're getting private homes and they're paying from this way and that way. It definitely wouldn't wash, and the BNP would see a rise. It would be definitely in that 1980s situation which prompted the making of the film This Is England. It would be that all over again. But I don't know. I don't really know how to explain it, other than the fact that this would be an assault on non-white people as well as poor people, and it would cause greater racism and greater problems. As I said, it's up to 82,000 people that could be affected in London. That kind of migration across the country would be felt by everybody. People would notice it. It would cause problems. And I've just looked at a quote further down. Where has it gone? The current system only suits private landlords who do very well out of housing benefit, and the liberal left do want poor people ghettoised in inner cities to get their votes. Well, first of all, can I just point out to everybody that it is not private landlords who benefit out of housing benefit, because it is very hard to find a private landlord who wants to put up with housing benefit. I live in what is technically an inner city, and very few private landlords want to take on anyone who's claiming housing benefit. I'm sorry, but that's, I know this because I've got a lot of people struggling to find a house. And again, it kind of bucks a trend that you think all single mums get free houses. They're out there, and the only way that a lot of these single mums get a house is by finding a private tenant. And I know one friend that has been turned down by no less than 7. I know another friend that it took her about 5 attempts. Private tenants do. I worked for a private tenant, and I know that they didn't want it. I now work for another person who's a private tenant, and he doesn't want people with housing benefit. So that's absolute bullshit. And in terms of the liberal left who want poor people ghettoised in inner cities for their votes, with the exception of immigrants, it's not as if these people are moving to these areas to get housing benefits. It's the fact that these people were born and bred in these areas, and when they were born and bred here, it was considerably more feasible to stay living there. They've remained there, and all of a sudden, people have put the prices up around them, and they're finding themselves in a situation that they can no longer afford. And this is the situation for me. There's a lot of people who live in the area I live in where it's becoming untenable for them to stay in this area, and they're having to move to the ghettos of Nottingham. We're one area that's on the edge of being a ghetto. We're not quite a ghetto, but for God's sake, the kids at least wish it was. And we're having to move to the rougher areas of Nottingham to stay afloat, and that just doesn't seem fair, especially when you're having to move to these areas because all you can get is a minimum wage job, and a minimum wage job doesn't even pay for a flat around here. We're in the bloody Midlands in Nottingham. It's not an expensive place, but the prices in the last 20 years have gone up astronomically. It just really is terrible. I mean, talking what I'm saying, there's a quote on the BBC interview saying, you can talk about the right to live in the community where you grow up, but where do you get the right to spend other people's money? Where does the government get the right to tell us that a house that cost $2,000 is now worth 115? How does anyone have the right to tell us that a house where you were paying rent at a rate of about £30 in 1980 is now justifiable at £90? It is not fair. You know, this isn't about spending other people's money. This is about people taking money off us that we haven't got and making us suffer. You know, this housing benefit is a way to alleviate the unfair nature of the situation. And it's not about the left playing a very clever game. It's about the left realising that they had to bend over backwards to private enterprise. And now we're trying to clear up the shit because of the way that private enterprise has made us suffer. The cost of housing is absolutely unjustifiable. The cost of rent is absolutely untenable. It is not right. It is not fair. It doesn't make sense. It is avaricious greed. I cannot emphasize that enough. I mean, I do not know how clearer you can get than saying that it's totally unjustifiable that a house that was worth £2,000 is now worth 115. It is not justifiable. How can people afford to live like this? There is no good excuse. The simple fact of the matter is that the cost of rent and the cost of houses has got to come down. It has got to go back to a realistic rate. The estate agents have got to operate on a cost on pricing houses purely at the cost of raw materials. Not saying, oh, you've had a nice drive put in, we'll put 10 grand on the price of your house. Oh, look at that, your windows are white, that's another £500. That kind of bullshit has got to stop. This location, property ladder bullshit is a cancer on our society, and it is screwing people over astronomically. So in principle, no, I do not agree with housing benefit. I don't agree with housing benefit because it shouldn't be needed, because houses shouldn't cost this much. This whole demand of, the way the estate agents work, the way private landlords work, is evil, is insipid, is absolutely fucking greedy. Housing benefit is merely a way to stop the pain, because you can't fight this system. Because no one can, because everyone knows that what I'm proposing is beyond radical. It's absolutely crazy and it is absolutely undoable. But it's the only way we can go about this. I cannot say it any more times than I've already said it. A house that's worth £2,000 should not be worth 115 now. It is not right. It does not make sense. How can anyone afford to live? I don't give a fuck about social cleansing. I don't give a fuck about ethnic cleansing. I don't give a fuck about geography, about how people are going to have to move because of this. It is just not right that any house anywhere costs what it does when it was 1/6 the price 20 years ago. 1/6 the price, 1/25 the price, whatever. It's absolutely fucking diabolical. But all people want to do is up the price, up the price, up the price. And of course that means that people are going to need more financial assistance. The reason why we have so many social welfare policies still in existence today is because we have a government that absolutely fucking shafts its people. Living in Britain is extraordinarily expensive in comparison to most countries. If we didn't have these benefits, the level of poverty in this country would go up tenfold, and that is a situation that we do not want. And I'm afraid with the current Tory government and the policies they are making, it's pretty safe to say that poverty is going to skyrocket unless they actually start being a little bit more realistic and a little bit more fair about this whole situation. Because this isn't just about the poorest people suffering. This is about middle class people suffering as well. Because of course a house that was worth 50 grand a year 20 years ago should not be worth 350 now. It's the same for everybody. And at the end of the day, it's like the emancipation of the serfs. You have got people round the noose of the neck, making them think that they own something, making them think that they are free, when they are literally living their lives down the barrel of a gun to afford the basic necessities of life. We should not be bloody held down the barrel of a gun to keep our home. A home should be a right, not a privilege, and not something that you have to spend your whole life defending. It's unfair, it's wrong, it's barbaric. I don't fucking care. At the end of the day, we should be working to a society where everyone has got a home for free. Yes, of course you have to work it out on how much people get paid, and of course the more you earn, the better home you get. But everybody should have a basic home for free.